Everyone should be well and healthy, and we have our question for this week. So somebody asked the question on Gemara Shabbos, on Gemara Shabbos Lamed Aleph. So there's a number of things that a person is asked when they graduate from this world, and one of the questions that are asked is in regards to, were you honest at business? Was a person honest at business? And the person asked the question in regards to the context of the other questions that are asked. In one set of opinion were asked 5 questions, and another set of opinion were asked 7 questions. And the question that he asked in context is, the other questions are very ruchniistic questions. And then we have this question, were you honest at work? Were you honest in business? Were you honest in business dealings? And Tachlis is a very, very good question, but it's a very fitting question as well. The reason why it's a very fitting question is because we've just come out of Tisha B'Av. We've just come out of Tisha B'Av. And there's an aspect of Tisha B'Av which is this is very connected to. And furthermore, we're heading towards Yamim Tovim. And within the Yamim Tovim, this is something incredibly connected to the Yamim Tovim. So let's try and open this up a little bit and give hopefully a general answer. I wish it could be a meticulous and an in-depth answer, but that's not going to be for now. But Tachlis, the Gemara tells us, as we know, that when we are dealing with Tisha B'Av, there's a town called Beitar. And in the Gemara of Gittin, Daf Nun Zayin 57, we're told that a number of calamities occurred during Tisha B'Av. And one of the calamities that occurred during Tisha B'Av was the destruction of this town, Beitar. And we're told that what happened is when a child was born, they would plant a tree. And this tree would be used as a holder for when they got married. So it would be used as a pole, so to speak. They'll take this tree and they'll make it a pole for the chuppah. And what happened is that there was a general that was passing through Beitar, and their carriage broke. And they took, it's far more in depth of what happened, but they took a tree, and they didn't realize, or they did realize, whatever it was, whatever the story is, they took a tree, and this tree was set aside for a bride and groom, and they used the tree to fix the carriage. And what happened is there were people who were there, and they basically said, it's time to revolt. And they revolted, and this led to the destruction of Beitar, this town. And more than that, we really don't have other places that are so descriptive in their demise. We don't have other places that are so descriptive in the destruction of a particular town. And that's something, you read these words, it's really horrific. It's very, very horrific, especially if you close your eyes for a moment and you come into that chazal and you be there. It's very, very horrific. Tachlis, we know, the Gemara tells us in Tanis 31, that it was on Tu B'Av that there was some sort of refuah, some sort of healing. It was so bad that for many years they did not let them bury the dead. And on Tu B'Av, a number of years later, they gave permission to bury the dead. So this is Beitar. This is one of the stories of Beitar. Now there's another story to do with Beitar, which gives a little bit more shape, context to why Beitar was punished. And it's a Yerushalmi in Gemara Tanis, 4th chapter. We're told as following, that the people of Beitar, after they heard the destruction of Yerushalayim, they were happy. They were happy that there was a destruction. And when they heard there was a destruction, they celebrated. They weren't too upset. So why were they not upset? So Chazal tell us there's something quite potentially superficial, but hopefully we'll try to understand the ramification of it in this gentleman's question. So what happens is that the Bnei Beitar, people from Beitar, would go up to Yerushalayim. And when the people from Beitar would go up to Yerushalayim, there would be, so to speak, a dishonesty in business. There'd be a dishonesty in business in several different ways. They were dishonest in the way they wrote documents, and they would not just take money, there was taxes involved. They would take people's houses. It was very unfortunate. So what happened is that when Bnei Beitar, when the people of Beitar heard what happened to Yerushalayim, they basically said they got what they deserved. They were dishonest with us in business. They were dishonest with us. They stole and they manipulated. They were not honest, and they got what they deserved. So what we can say, we can add on, the destruction of Beitar was to do with business. It was to do with the dishonesty in business. And because they were dishonest in business, when they heard Beitar, Bnei Beitar, when they heard about the destruction of Jerusalem, they were happy. They said, look what you did to us. You were dishonest in business, you took our land, you manipulated us, so we should be sad for you. Bnei Yerushalayim, no, we're happy. And this is a big question. Why are we so bothered? Why was this something so negative that created this destruction of Beitar? Obviously, we know that it's something incredibly important. To be honest, in business, it's not really a question. But for sure, we need to ask these questions to remind us, to recognize. So maybe we can go a little bit deeper, so to speak. Maybe we can open up the sugya. We can open up this and flesh out and excavate here a little bit more. What we can start off by saying is this following, that we're going to take a little detour in the Arba Yisodot. The Arba Yisodot are 4 life foundations that we've spoken about before. This is something I learned from Rabbi Singer primarily, and over the years I've built it out considerably, adding many more sources. And Baruch Hashem, I shared these teachings after I heard it from Rabbi Singer. I shared my findings with Rabbi Singer, with the Biala Rebbe and others. And it's something really, really important for us in order to really have an integration in our life, focal point in our life, to hopefully live well. And it gives us the ability to focus, it gives us the ability to flourish, and it really gives us the ability to thrive. What are the Arba Yisodot? So just before I say the Arba Yisodot relate to the Tetragrammaton. It relates to Hashem's name, the Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey. So the Yud, we can say, the chupchik of the Yud, the point at the top of the Yud, relates to spirituality. And we have our definitions and principles of spirituality. Spirituality is your connection to the divine. Spirituality is living for something bigger than yourself. Spirituality is being of service. There's other principles involved, but that's spirituality. The Yud itself is guidance. What's guidance? Having a mentor. Aseh lecha Rav, having a mentor, having somebody that can guide you, having somebody that can push you and stretch you. Rav comes from the Lashon, number 1, it's related in the Zohar to or, to light. It's related as well to more, somebody who can stretch you, somebody who can push you, somebody who can believe in you. Then you've got the next Hey. You've got the letter Hey after the Yud. What's the letter Hey? To do with knowledge. What's to do with knowledge? It's to do with how the mind works, the acquisition of knowledge and the usage of knowledge, creativity. That's the Hey. Then you have the Vav. The Vav is relationships. And a very important driver to living a fulfilled life is what? Long-term, deep, intimate relationships. So that's relationships. That's Vav. And then the last Hey, which is called Malchut, which really is the container for everything, splits up into 2. We have financial health, which we're going to go into in a minute, and we have physical health. Financial health, the general principles of financial health is to have a good mindset about finance, to know how finance works, to have the ability to really invest healthily in finance. and to understand the ripple effects in finance in our life. There's certain principles that the premise of Work Inspired is based on. And then you have physical health. What's physical health? Physical health, we have 5 pillars to physical health. We have the pillar of breathing. Simple, uncomplicated breathing. Breathing, hydration, sleeping, eating, and exercise, movement. This is the pillars of physical health. Now, when we speak about physical health, we take for granted physical health. Physical health, we know, shamar nafshechem, that you have to protect your soul. We're told that, and we have halachas governing how we protect ourselves. But the nakuda is, it's something very straightforward, that if my body and mind are not healthy, the vessel to hold the light is not there. It's not available to us. And we have the famous Baal Shem Tov, Maggid of Mezrich, and others bring this out, that the light comes into a vessel, the mind and body. And the mind and body has to be strong and healthy. So we take that for granted. We take that for granted. But another part of Malchut, which is this lowest level, this level of having the, so to speak, container, is financial health. And financial health is something so important and very easily can be missed. I would like to explain a little bit about financial health and why, for example, we have this question asked. So the Gemara in Shabbat, Lamed Aleph, Shabbat 31 asks us, were you honest in business? We take for granted our body and mind has to be healthy. So we're not asked that question. We are asked the first question to do with the Malchut, to do with the physical world, and the aspect that makes tremendous change in the physical world. All the other elements are to do with the mind and the spirit, which obviously makes a very, very big difference. However, in our world, we live in a physical world, and our physical world is the container for the spirit. Our physical world is the, so to speak, home for the spirit. When Shlomo HaMelech built the Bet HaMikdash, Shlomo HaMelech asks, how can HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who is the Ein Sof, who is a light without any end, infinite, how can Ein Sof, how can Hashem dwell in this world? So, based on other sources said by Shlomo HaMelech, Hashem doesn't dwell in this world. Hashem dwells through our activities. There's a vessel of physicality, the vessel of the physical world, and Hashem dwells through the physical world, not in the physical world. So, for example, when the temple was destroyed, it's because the activity in the temple lessened. That Ein Sof, divine intelligence, shone through the human beings doing their work in the temple. And this very much is to do with finance, and it's to do with what finance does for us. It's to do with the world of physicality. And the world of finance is very much to do with the world of physicality. And if we take, for example, the Ben Ish Chai brings numerical values where the word of mammon is ladder, that through money and through physicality, we can climb up the ladder, creating a vessel for divine light to shine through. Or if we take the Aramaic word, and we've shared this before, zuz. Zuz is a word used for money. Zuz means to move. Very interesting. Because it's not the money itself, it's not the physicality itself, it's what we do with it that makes all the difference in the world. And when we're being asked this question, were you honest in business? Were you honest in handlings of money? Were you honest with the physical world and the way you use the physical world? What's being asked here? Were you of the understanding that the physical world is the only world? The physical world is it. We don't have anything else to share God in the world. All we have is the physical world. All we have is the Gashmiut, materialism. That's it. When we speak about spirituality, We only can speak about spirituality in terms of physicality. We can only speak about spirituality in terms of materialism. So, for example, when we speak about feeling close to divine intelligence, I feel close to Hashem, I feel distance to Hashem. So they are terms that are used within physicality. When I feel, for example, connected, I could say I feel warm or I feel safe. Whatever words we use, what we will come to find is the language that we use is always language to do with physicality. It's always language to do with physicality. All we have, my friends, all we have nothing else. All we have is physicality and materialism to express divine intelligence in the world, to express God, Hashem, in the world, to express the Baira Olam, the CEO of all the universes. All we have is materialism. All we have is physicality, nothing else. So obviously we take for granted, which there are actually some sources that share this, that when we are asked this question in Gemara Shabbat, Lamed Aleph, Gemara Shabbos Lamed Aleph, when we're asked this question about were you honest in business, it's to do as well. We take for granted it's to do with our physical health as well. Did you look after your physical health? Were you careful? Were you cautious? So this point of being asked this question when we graduate is of utmost importance, because what we are sharing, it is all we have in order to share divine intelligence, to share God in the world. And that's something incredibly fundamental. So this question that we are asked in the Talmud 31 and the other questions we are asked are all questions to do with the reality of, was I a conduit? Was I a conduit? Was I actually a healthy vessel to share God, to share Hashem in the world? So that's step one. And now when we come and speak about Tisha B'Av, and coming out of Tisha B'Av, and when we come to Rosh Hashanah, when we go into Rosh Hashanah, we're asked many a time with Rosh Hashanah, and we are sharing with divine intelligence. We are asking Hashem, please give me an abundance of money. Please give me an abundance of healthy business. Give me an abundance of materialism. Why? Because that's the vessel to share Hashem in the world. And as we know, Rosh Hashanah is about making Hashem king. So how do I make Hashem king? I make Hashem king by using materialism in the right way. That's the only thing that I have to make Hashem king. If my body and my mind is healthy and strong, then I'm going to be far better at being a vessel. And then if my environment around me is really clean and tidy and sharp, if I have all the materialism I need, that's a healthy vessel in order to share Hashem in the world. So obviously it makes sense that Rosh Hashanah is a time, Sefer HaChaim, Rosh Hashanah is a time where I ask for wealth. Rosh Hashanah is a time where I ask for money, because that's all that we have. That's it. We don't have anything else to share Hashem in the world apart from materialism and how we use materialism. And everything fits into that. So when we're speaking about money and when we're speaking about business, am I understanding that the foreground is obviously to have and live a comfortable life, and the background is recognizing, going a little bit deeper, the background is this reality check that the vessel I have to share God in the world is materialism. So when we speak about the destruction of Beitar, when we come to understand why Beitar was completely destroyed, we can start to understand why. Because they were dishonest in, or they were happy, so to speak, with Yerushalayim's downfall because of Yerushalayim's dishonesty with business. And they were happy with that. They laughed. They said, oh, gewaltig, they'll destroy it, good. It's teaching us that number one, that Yerushalayim should have been honest. And obviously, Arevim Zelazeh, as the Talmud says, they shouldn't have been upset. They should have been happy that Jerusalem was destroyed. They should have been sad that the Jerusalem was destroyed, and they should have learned. They should have learned. So Jerusalem was destroyed because of dishonesty, and Beitar because they were happy at their destruction. They were happy at their destruction, where they should have learned a lesson. Wow, you see here how honest I need to be in business, because it's the physicality that enables us to shine Hashem in the world. But no. So Beitar was destroyed along with Yerushalayim, Arevim Zelazeh, because they were happy at Jerusalem's destruction, at the dishonesty. They got what they deserved. That shouldn't have been the attitude. The attitude should have been, wow, this is a lesson. This is a Musa Heskel. They missed the point. They missed the point. This is terrible. It shows us how we have to be really honest in business and use physicality in a healthy way. And we should cry over the fact that this happened, not laugh and not be happy. Arevim Zelazeh. All of us, every single person, we're all in the same pot. And we have to hear the main lessons in life. We have to really be understanding of the lessons. There's another point that we can go into as well, and this is a very, very, very important point. And that is that when we're speaking about the world of Chet Adam, when Adam Arishon ate from the tree, so we know Kabbalistically there was what we call a shattering of the vessels. And when we're speaking about the shattering of the vessels, let's try and describe this in a very, very quick way. So when we're speaking about the shattering of the vessels, when Adam and Chava were in Gan Eden, everything was aligned. Everything was perfectly placed. Everything was aligned. And when everything was aligned, so everything was functioning well, the light came down into the Chayin Yechida, into the Neshama, into the Ruach, into the Nefesh. So Hashem's light can descend, and all of the vessels were in the correct place. All of the vessels to contain that light were in the right order. And because there was a throughway, because all of these vessels, all of the soul parts were aligned, so what happened is the light came down and came through Adam and Chava. After they ate from the tree, we know that there was a shattering. We know that there was a breakage. So now the light doesn't come down cleanly. And what we are told is this shattering of the vessels, we now, as we're told by the mystics, these shards of holiness, nitzosos kedusha, nitzotzot kedusha, these sparks, these shards of holiness fell into where? So we're told they fell into the physical world, they fell into the physical body, they fell into our mind, and our reclaiming of consciousness, becoming balei das, our reclaiming of consciousness is what's very, very important in order to constantly be engaged. And we are engaged, depending on our consciousness, we are always engaged in excavating, gathering, and elevating these sparks. And when all the sparks are elevated and everything is placed in their right space, then the Geula will occur. Then we will experience the Geula. And until then, we're in the process of excavating, elevating these sparks. Now, the way it works, this is to do with the background. This is the background mechanisms of what's happening as we live with Torah and Halacha, as we live with Devekut Emunah and Bitachon. So what we are told is that when we are living consciously, what we are doing, we're excavating, gathering, and elevating. Now, where are most of these sparks? So we're told the Jikafa brings and the Yismach Moshe and others, Parashat Yitro and other places, that most of these sparks are found in the physical world. That's where most of these sparks are found. So for example, in the physical space itself, in the physical body, and that includes, for example, the food that we eat, that includes the clothes that we wear, etc., etc. It includes all the physical items that we own. Now, what we see in this generation, and what we're told by the mystics, is that in this generation, In the last leg of our timeline, what's the last leg of our timeline? We know there's 6,000 years. And we are coming towards the end of the 6,000 years. So there is a, so to speak, speeding up of the excavation, gathering, and elevation of these sparks. So now when we look out at the world and we observe, we could see that we are wealthier than ever before. Materialism is abundance, more than ever. And as we know, abundancy is godliness, and scarcity is not godliness. We are living in a generation of the greatest revelation. We really are living in a spectacular generation. And there's nothing like this that's ever been before, so to speak. Maybe the times of the Beit HaMikdash, maybe. And we're living in a generation where the abundance is profound. So this asks us to ask a question. What are we meant to do with that? We see this world and we're living with so much abundance. And we have so much opportunity. What are we meant to do with it? So the background is to understand there's this birur nitzotzot kedusha. Birur nitzotzot kedusha. What does that mean? That there is a fixing, there's a beautification, there's a realization that everything and anything I am doing, I am healing, I'm excavating, gathering, and elevating these sparks and bringing these sparks to the rightful place. So in this generation, you and I, depending on our consciousness, we have the most unbelievable opportunity, the most fantastic opportunity to be involved in the final revelation of the Bir Netzosis Kedusha. We have that unbelievable opportunity. And how does that opportunity occur? Through the physical world, through business, through money, through having belongings. So we are in a position today that the mystics explain that we are set up in such a way that honesty in business is to do with our level of consciousness as we interact with the physical world. When we understand the only vessel that we have is the physical world, and we work with Hashem, keeping Torah and keeping halacha and being conscious as we function with Hashem, that we are involved in the greatest glorification, the greatest magic and the greatest collaboration with divine intelligence, using this physical world, which is very, very much connected, as we said, to finance, to money, to having our belongings. So we have the most unbelievable revelation, the most unbelievable opportunity. So now we can hopefully come to give an answer. I know it's not the fullest answer, but it's an answer that I think starts, obviously, always deeper conversations. To realize that as you sit at your desk, as you are honest at work, what you're doing is you are being that vehicle, you're being that conduit to earn money honestly, to be involved in money honestly. You are that revelation. And the more that we can engage in a healthy, prosperous way, the more that we realize abundance is godliness, and we can use our money to build a beautiful world around us. It's not selfish, it's selfless. It's selfless because you are revealing in a good, healthy way with what you do with your finance and how you use your finance and how you use materialism. You are revealing divine intelligence in the world, godliness in the world. And as we know, what does Hashem want? Hashem desires a dira b'tachtoina. Medrash Tanchuma, Parashat Naso 16. But Hashem wants to be in this world. Hashem becomes revealed in this world through you and I being honest in business and using materialism in the right way. May we always be happy to each other, and Be'ezras Hashem, may we remain focused, and may we flourish and thrive. Bracha, mazel, and hatzlacha.